When you're looking to grow revenue in your organization, there seems to be this timeless argument about where the best place to get it is. Should you find brand new prospects and customers who you've never done business with before, or should you spend time within existing relationships looking for ways to grow within those accounts? And I just think that argument is misguided. I don't think it makes any sense because growth is growth, revenue is revenue. What difference does it make how hard you had to work in order to get it? What matters is that you get it. And so I think the way to look at this, the better way to look at this, is not in terms of young versus old, new versus long-standing. It's growable versus not. And I think another big factor when it comes to selling is always the level of access that you have to these accounts. Are they accessible or not? Are they growable or not? And when you plot those two factors on a very simple X and Y axis, you create 4 quadrants for yourself. Your prospect is either growable and accessible, growable but not accessible, not growable but accessible, or not growable and not accessible. And quite frankly, quadrant 4, if they don't want to talk to you and you don't need to talk to them, let's just ignore them. But let's talk about the first 3. So I've got this picture for you here. And this basically graphically represents where you could spend your time and kind of the priorities that you should be spending according to how growable and how accessible these prospects are. And quadrant 1, I don't care if they're new, they're old, what difference does their age make? If they are growable and you have access to them, you need to take care of these leads first. These are mid to bottom of the funnel leads and opportunities, and they need your time. If there is time to be spent there, do not spend it anywhere else ahead of this, okay? Unless you have defined and scheduled next steps, in which case you're literally looking for something else to do. If that's the case, then move into quadrant 2. Now, quadrant 2, these are growable prospects. These are growable opportunities where you don't have as much access. So this takes a little bit of planning. This takes some execution. This takes maybe some sequences that you can either automate or kind of semi-automate. Like you can take care of these things in an asynchronous manner. And you make sure you're doing the work in quadrant 2 to move those opportunities into quadrant 1. That's where a lot of people are lacking because they don't have the foresight. They don't sit down and sit still long enough to develop a plan that they can then execute. Now, Jeffrey Gitomer taught me a long time ago that most sales reps are not willing to do the hard work necessary up front to make the selling part easy. That is quadrant 2 type activities. Those are the things that you need to have down. Otherwise, you're not going to have long-term success. But you still shouldn't be undertaking those activities in the place of quadrant 1 activities. Now, quadrant 3, this is the big trap. This is what I call the quadrant of plausible deniability. This is the rep who says he spends all day with customers, but none of those customers are growable. And it is not your job as a sales rep to babysit customers. It is your job to grow customers. Now, I'm hearing the arguments already. Well, if I don't spend time with my existing customers, that revenue is going to go away, and then we're going to have a bigger hole to fill, and I can't let that happen, Jeff. Look, I understand you can't let that happen, but you need to be honest with yourself. Do you need to be in front of that customer every week, or do you need to be in front of them every month? Does it need to be every month, or could it be every quarter? And if you knew exactly why those customers are so good, if you knew exactly why they were buying from you and continuing to buy from you over the course of that relationship, then you would know exactly how much time you need to spend with them because you'd be able to double down on their motives to buy, and then you could be very, very clear about where you spend the rest of your time. You can be very clear about how little time you probably need to spend in order to maintain those relationships. So this is where you really need to be honest with yourself because it's a trap. You go to these customers, you make calls on them, they make you feel good, and after a tough day or at the beginning of a tough week, that's where your tendency is going to be, is to go and have them make you feel good so you can kind of say that you were doing some work. What you need to be doing is spending more time in quadrants 1 and quadrants 2. That's why those numbers are green, because that's where you should be prioritizing your time. Quadrant 3 is yellow because there's some caution there. You need to proceed with caution because you can't get trapped. And quadrant 4 is obviously not a place where you need to be spending your time. So just think of that as red. So look, I hope I've been able to change the way you think about your prospects and the way you think about where you're going to forecast spending your time. If you've got any questions, you want some help walking through this, give me a call. You know how to get a hold of me. Shoot me a message through this platform or just an email, jb@jeffbajorek.com. I love talking through this stuff, and I know I can help you, and I think this will make a difference in your forecasting efforts.